Let's talk about the DNC. We'll start with you, Jill. You were there. I don't regularly read Christoph, but I did read one of his columns, and he had a throwaway line that I would have preferred that the voters choose, as if that was just an aside. I almost fell out of my chair. But let's talk about the farce that took place, completely choreographed. They didn't allow anyone. Let's go back to the primaries. I mean, they wouldn't allow anyone to run against Biden. And then when Biden was faltering, every Democratic politician who ended up, of course, carrying out a kind of party coup ensured us that he was sharp and his mental acuity was, preserved, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just talk about the whole process because it's vaudeville, it's burlesque.
Totally. It was a theater of the absurd. It was a display of decadence. It was joy before genocide, or joy, in the face of genocide.
Come
To my
on, tell
mind,
them.
it was just shameful, an abomination, really hard to stomach. You had not only you had everybody on stage, Republicans, families of Israeli hostages, Oprah, everybody's on stage, but not the Palestinian delegates, not the loyal Democrats who happen to remind people that there's a genocide. They just wanted their party. To my mind, it was like the height of fiddling while Rome burns. While our humanity goes up in flames. It's an effort to party down. And there was the ring of corporate suites on the upper level, which were paid anywhere from $500,000 to several $1,000,000 apiece for each of those suites. That tells you where the real power lay here, what was really going on at that convention. Those suites, which were off limits to the public and to the press, that is like the power behind the throne here. Kamala Harris, true to the process that you've described, she's just had, she's had the kind of circle closed around her to protect her from any kind of scrutiny. It's like what was done for Joe Biden, and then finally the truth had out, that there was no there. Well, it's no secret that there's no there with Kamala Harris either. She's a complete chameleon to the degree that she has beliefs whatsoever. But she's had a very hard time expressing her beliefs over the past many years and tends to talk herself in circles. So she's not done a single interview. She's not been in a debate. She's not had a single vote cast on her behalf. Her website lacks policies. It's all about merch. To me, it's just mind-boggling that people allow themselves to be bamboozled. Again, this is like Obama mania 2.0. And, where did that get us? Obama, it was all about hope and change. Now it's just about joy and hope. Hope is back. Joy is back. And what did we get with Obama? His very first appointment was Larry Summers, even before Obama was in office. The truth was out that this was not about hope and change. This was about serving Wall Street more than ever, doubling down for Wall Street. And that's what went on to happen. And Obama took us from 2 wars to 7, massively accelerated the production of fossil fuels, all the while saying, all of the above, it's all of the above. We're doing great things for renewable energy, which nature doesn't care about. Nature cares about fossil fuels. People care about renewables, but the climate could care less. So it was just BS with Obama, and we paid to the teeth for that. And now people are allowing themselves to drink similar Kool-Aid. But let me just say, what we're seeing right now is the PR circus. We're not actually seeing what happens because people's material needs are not being met. They're not being addressed. I was outside with the Poor People's Army, which had marched 100 miles from Milwaukee, which was homeless people screaming about their dire healthcare needs, about the needs for schools and education and to get out of debt. That just had no presence whatsoever in the Kamala Harris agenda and not at the DNC. So, it remains to be seen what happens. And I think it's really important for people not to drink the Kool-Aid, to not allow ourselves to normalize the torture and murder of children on an industrial scale. What goes down in Gaza is not going to stay in Gaza. This is basically, setting the agenda from here forward. It's very important that we stand up and to recognize that the endless war machine, of which genocide is a symbol, is robbing us blind, is consuming half of our congressional budget. This is why, over $1 trillion a year, if you add the associated costs, the VA, the security agencies and so on, if you add up all the costs here, this is why it's over $1 trillion. And this is why we are not providing for the healthcare, the housing, the education, getting people out of debt, dealing with the climate emergency, ending the carceral state and having a restorative system of justice, and addressing the issues of poverty and hopelessness, which drive crime in the first place. The migration crisis, which itself is a product of U.S. policies. The most critical thing we can do to address the migration crisis is to stop causing it in the first place. And then we can provide the infrastructure. Instead of spending billions on a wall that doesn't work, we can instead spend that money on the migration attorneys, on the civil servants, and so on, so that people can be quickly processed, background checked, and provided papers so that they can work. And in that case, migrants are not a burden to their communities in the least. They are an incredible resource, which actually makes the country safer and more prosperous. So we can solve these problems, but having this unbelievably overblown, toxic, dangerous military, which goes hand in hand with a war on working people and a war on our democracy here at home, we don't solve any of it. It doesn't serve any of us. This is why, as Butch was saying, this is why they don't want us in the mix, because we can remind people of the actual realities here and, do a reality check on the nonsense, on the absolute spin and propaganda that's being forced down our throats. We need to stand up. Forget the lesser evil. There is no lesser evil. You have two genocidal candidates, one conducting genocide right now and the other promising to finish the job. We need to stand up, forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do, right here and right now.
I covered the civil wars in Central America for 5 years. And of course it was our military assistance that created these despotic failed states, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. I was there. I covered it. That's why Karl Liebknecht, the great German socialist on the eve of World War I, called the German military the enemy from within. And Arnold Toynbee, the great historian, said empires die when they finally cannot control their military machines. Butch, during the DNC, which I admit I didn't watch, I only read about it and saw whatever clips somebody sent to me. But they played the race card and they played the class card. You had black billionaires. It was and as Jill said, of course, all the corporate sponsors were up there. I'm sure giving standing ovations. But let's talk about the rhetoric that was used by these figures who spoke, including with Pritzker, who proudly bragged that he was a real billionaire as opposed to Trump.
Man, how much time do we have? So let me just say this. So as a professor that teaches, I literally have a class at UCSB called Black Revolutionaries, and it's about resistance to white supremacy and anti-slavery movements in West Africa and through imperialism and so forth. I'm a lifelong student and teacher of the Black radical tradition. So let's just go with Frantz Fanon, right? One of his most famous books, Black Skins, White Masks, okay? And this is what we are looking at with the weaponization of Blackness in order to justify genocide. This is black skin, white mask, blackface minstrelsy. I'm not going to pull any punches. And I just want to say this. I mean, I said this before on an Instagram live, like Kamala is to politics what Drake is to hip hop. It's cosplay blackness that is designed to disempower our communities and is a fundamental betrayal of the black radical tradition that was hip hop music. And that now, again, this has become toxins. So I'm just going to give, I said that Muhammad Ali was one. We heard float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I wrote a little bit of a rhyme, okay? Because I saw Kamala's coconut memes, right? And everybody's, oh, coconut memes, coconut memes. So here we go. I seen them coconut memes. You got the wrong imagery. It ain't about falling out the tree. It's about mentality. Brown on the outside, yeah, that's a coconut to me. But when you open it, you find a colonizer in the mind. This is the people's revolution and the people know the time. Ask Cam about reparations, hem and haw and shuck and jive. About 10 days ago was teaching, got a call from Jill Stein. Asked what she bringing to the nation, laying back in reparations, promising cash payments and free in Palestine, liberation of the Congo, Sudan and Rikers Isle. No more locking brothers up on the pettiest of crimes. No more Latinos up in cages, no dividing of the races. Drug epidemic, treat with rehabilitation instead of time in jail, disempower the cartels. Now, what do I mean by this? We have people that are just black imperialists and are overlooking an actual emancipatory agenda. In Britain, the term coconut is the equivalent of the American term Oreo. It's something, Oreo is black on the outside, white on the inside. The similar term for our indigenous brothers and sisters, derogatory term was apple, red on the outside, white on the inside. They got the coconut memes all wrong. That is a black imperialist, and they are weaponizing this sacred tradition of resistance to white supremacy in order to justify genocide. And not on my watch. I'm sorry. This means too much to many of us. And it doesn't just have to be black radicals. It's also anti-Zionist Jews like my running mate, Dr. Jill Stein. Like, Jill, I've heard you say, not in my name, right? Well, not in my name either. And that's why I think that this is such a powerful, powerful duo, right? Is that we can stand as a white Jewish medical doctor, okay, and as a black Muslim history professor, not politicians, public servants. And we can say that you guys are spellbound by this duopoly, right? And we are going to, as a medical doctor and a professor, we are going to heal and educate this nation to get them out from under this fascist spell. Last point, Chris. I saw your piece where you talked about Nero's guests, right? And this is the thing. Dr. Jill set it up, so I'm going to knock it down, right? Yes, fiddling while Rome burned. But as you pointed out, Nero was conducting live crucifixions, burning people alive, and people are attending dinner parties. So the question isn't about Nero. We understand Nero's motivation. Nero's motivation is that he is a deranged, power-drunk lunatic. And certainly both of these parties have reached that station. The question ultimately becomes, what is wrong with us? Why are our hearts so dead that we can walk through this spectacle of charred corpses and throw parties in Chicago?
That's it. Let's talk about class. They played that class rhetoric and the utter mendacity of it was, I mean, how many mansions does Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, let's be clear, Michelle Obama was a corporate lawyer before she went to the White House, pulling down $250,000 a year. But they played that class rhetoric too. So talk about that, Butch.
I mean, so there's this, okay, it's actually tapping in to a deep psychological need, okay, which Dr. Jill Stein is going to address through reparations rather than through individualist capitalist exploitation. So try to stay with me. Back at home, I know you guys are staying with me, but sometimes I get a little academic, so pardon me. So W.E.B. Du Bois said of capitalism, a system of universal selfishness cannot bring social good to all. But what has recently substituted for an actual liberatory agenda in the Black community is individual excellence, right? That is Black excellence. And what that masks is that it is usually acquired through complicity with oppressive systems. And this goes to the corrupt bargain that the American empire has always offered to Black America, right? Is that if you hold the bag, we'll do the stealing and you can have your share. Right? And that's what we see. We see those Black criminals who are happy to hold the bag, right? And they get their share, okay? And because of that, they are bought and paid for. We know what Malcolm called them. Malcolm called them house Negroes. And he said that they can afford to do these things because they live relatively good, but they are actually selling out their people. And what did he say about this? He said, what happened with Joe Biden? Joe Biden is faltering. Malcolm said, when the master gets sick, the house Negroes say, what's wrong, boss? We sick? So Kamala comes in, boss, we sick? How can we weaponize our Blackness to help this party get back on its feet? And it is built on a class divide. So this is an absolutely criminal weaponization of class difference and racial difference that is designed to silence what has been the overwhelming majority, right, of the Black response to this genocide, which is that the Black community has been at the forefront of the resistance to this genocide, alongside Palestinian Americans, anti-Zionist Jews, anybody with a functioning heart. And it, for me, is deeply disappointing as someone who, look, I'm the son of a locksmith with a 6th grade education. My father earned his living with his hands. My grandfather earned his living with his hands. To see the class and racial dimensions weaponized in this way, to me, is an affront to everything that I've learned about liberation.